Good morning, everybody. This is Laser Beam. Thought I'd make a video today addressing the big ass elephant in the combat sports room right now, known as UFC 282. I want to preface this video by saying the opinions and viewpoints expressed in this video do not reflect those of the UFC, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the judges appointed by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the fighters involved in UFC 282, or anyone else therefore involved with the UFC or the Nevada State Athletic Commission whatsoever. These opinions are expressed by myself solely, and that's it. Having said that, I wanted to lend my educated opinion to the two main events of UFC 282. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy flying around right now, and I've noticed historically when I watch a pay-per-view or any fight, and there is a controversial decision involved. My initial assessment after watching it live tends to change after I go back and watch them again. Honestly, almost every time, my initial assessment, like a few days later, I'll watch it 3 or 4 times, I'm like, and it tends to change at least a little bit. So, I wanted to lend my opinion. Again, just my own opinion. Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon. Paddy Pimblett is, outside of Sean O'Malley, probably the UFC's biggest rising star right now. Anyone can have their opinions on him personally. Obviously, they're entitled to. He was on a 5-fight win streak, I believe. He's on the rise. He's looked good. He says a lot of great things in the octagon. His suicide prevention speech after his last fight really caught a lot of attention. Mad respect for that. But at the end of the day, it's about the fights. You know, you can have as big of a persona as you can, but all that gets stripped away when you're in the octagon. Hashtag Conor McGregor. Don't at me. Pimblett versus Gordon. So, fights are judged on a couple of different things. Strikes landed, octagon control, aggression, control time, so on and so forth. I agree with Dana White when he said that Jared Gordon threw away the third round. Clinched him, held him against the cage, just kind of coasted through. So what I always tell my fighters, anyone else, even if in a 3-round fight you think you're up 2-0, do not coast through that third round. Always go for the finish. Especially with the way judging has been, not just this year, but the way it's going, you just never know what you're going to get. Go for the finish. Be as active as you possibly can. I don't care how tired you are. Get the job done. Anyway, Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon, the first 2 rounds, in my opinion, were pretty competitive. Striking looked good. Jiu-jitsu looked good. And then the third round, Paddy mounted a lot of defense as Gordon just held him up against the cage. Went for some takedowns, blah, blah, blah. One of the main points of judging is going to be on activity, though. It was hard for Paddy to be very offensively active because he was on the defense for most of round 3. While Gordon just kind of stood there and held him. Threw in some underhooks, some overhooks. Yeah, a little bit of striking. Big deal. So I would have to give the third round to Paddy Pimblett because he was more active in his defense, in stuffing what Jared Gordon was mounting. Okay? First 2 rounds were competitive, in my opinion. They were very competitive. Striking looked good. Again, jiu-jitsu looked good. But that brings me to my next point. Paddy Pimblett lost the fight. Jared Gordon outboxed him. I think his grappling was a level above. Everything Jared Gordon did was better and looked more polished and solid than Paddy Pimblett. Okay? He was more solid. I don't know if you can necessarily say he was more active specifically, but he just looked better. He landed more strikes. He did better. I have a lot of respect for Paddy Pimblett. I think he's a rising star. I think he has a lot of potential. But going back and watching it over a few times, he was saying it wasn't close and everything. I think that's just the character he's adopting coming out. Sorry, Paddy. Love you to death. Jared Gordon won that fight, hands down. Okay. Please feel free to express your opinions in the comments on this page. I'm not going to censor anybody. You can agree with me, disagree with me. Again, these are just my opinions. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and we can have differences of opinions and still have great relationships. Having said that, Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev, the main event. A lot of controversy going around this fight as well. Ended in a split draw for the light heavyweight championship belt, which now remains vacant and will be decided by Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill at UFC 283. There should have been a champion crowned this past weekend at UFC 282, hands down. Now, I'm going to kind of go through this round by round in my opinion. Watching it live, again, my initial assessment was Magomed Ankalaev won the fight, hands down. You couldn't possibly argue that. And then I went back and watched it again, and again, and again, and again. Round one. Jan Blachowicz beat the piss out of Ankalaev for 5 minutes straight. Beat his legs up, beat up his body, beat up his head. Ankalaev clearly had the speed advantage, but Blachowicz undoubtedly had the power advantage. Round two. Jan Blachowicz beat the piss out of him for 5 minutes straight. Beat up his legs, beat up his body. I mean, the damage was snowballing very quickly. To the point where, towards the end of the second round, Ankalaev could barely stand up. Now, say what you want about light heavyweights and all that. Jan Blachowicz could easily be a heavyweight. The man is made of cement and he hits like a truck. Now, these Dagestani guys, we all know they're a completely different breed. There's something unique. There's something special. Whatever it is they got, I wish the rest of us had it. You know, hats off to them. Even when they take damage, you barely know it. Look at when Islam Makhachev got upkicked by Charles Oliveira, got his chin sent into the stratosphere and didn't even hardly react. These guys are special. So, when Ankalaev started to react the way he did to the shots he was taking, especially to the legs, you knew that he was hurting bad. Blachowicz was beating the snot out of him. Round three, Blachowicz beat the snot out of him again for about 3 minutes. And then Ankalaev changed his strategy wisely and went to the wrestling. Partially because he knew he had the advantage in the wrestling, but also because he couldn't stand anymore. In my opinion, Blachowicz was 2 or 3 leg kicks away from Ankalaev being totally crippled and unable to compete. I mean, his leg was absolutely mauled. Just completely mangled. Just from a handful of leg kicks, but that's what you get when you're getting hit by tree trunks. Okay? I've taken leg kicks. They're not fun. Everybody's like, oh, leg kicks, they're kind of a relatively new thing. They were never really used that effectively before, unless you want to go back to like Peter Yan, Uriah Faber stuff. They weren't really a big thing until recently. But they're being used to proper, devastating effect now. Last 2 rounds, Jan Blachowicz was visibly exhausted. Now, keep in mind, they both trained for a 3-round fight. Then they got a 5-round fight dumped on them a few weeks before a fight week. So they're not going to be doing any hard sparring. Yeah, they'll be doing some cardio, but nothing crazy. Jan Blachowicz was visibly tired after that 3rd round. Who can blame him? Ankalaev was beat to shit and took Jan Blachowicz to the ground. Now, I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to go back to a fight that I think is good to compare it with. Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan. Everybody says Sean O'Malley got away with a robbery against Petr Yan, but they were judging that fight based on damage done. Petr Yan landed 6 takedowns on Sean O'Malley. Got him to the ground, held him there, controlled him. But he didn't really do any damage with it. Okay, a lot of people don't know in the MMA world that takedowns they don't score as high as you think they do. A takedown is a transitional technique from the standing to the ground. Okay, you can't just get a takedown and be like, oh, big score. You have to actually do something with it. Go after submissions, land nasty ground and pound, finish the fight. People expect you to finish the fight when you take your opponent down. You just take him down and hold him there and just climb on him for a minute, try to pass their guard, whatever. He doesn't actually score as high as you think it does. Control time does factor into the scoring process, but just holding somebody there doesn't score as well as landing ground and pound or chasing submissions. Ankalaev took Blachowicz down and held him there for basically 10 minutes for the last 2 rounds. Went after submissions. Blachowicz defended well. He landed a little bit of ground and pound, and then in the last 2 minutes of the 5th round, he landed some heavy shots from the top. But it wasn't until the last 2 minutes. So, I know I'm bouncing around here, but anyway, go back to Sean O'Malley and Petr Yan. By the end of the fight, Petr Yan was busted, bloody, and just torn up. O'Malley had some marks, but he didn't really have anything really significant going on. Yeah, he got taken down 6 times, but Yan didn't really do anything with it. You're talking about activity and aggression. O'Malley was more aggressive, getting back to his feet and continuing the fight instead of just being held there on the ground. So, yeah, I can see that score going either way. I can see why they gave it to Sean O'Malley. He did a lot more damage than Petr Yan did. Fast forward to Blachowicz and Ankalaev. Ankalaev outstruck Blachowicz almost 2-1. Okay. But again, he took him down and held him there. Didn't really get anything out of it. Yeah, he landed a little bit of ground and pound, but nothing really significant. Blachowicz beat the piss out of Ankalaev for 15 minutes straight before he started to get taken down. So if you're looking at damage again, you have to give it to Jan Blachowicz. Now, one judge scored it for Blachowicz, one judge scored it for Ankalaev, and then the third judge scored it 47-47, making it a split draw. I don't see how you can draw that fight. And again, Blachowicz was a gentleman and, displaying a lot of honor after the fight, saying he thought Ankalaev should get the belt. But now he's changed his tune a little bit on social media, so he went back and watched it and he can see a draw coming out of it. I still don't see a draw, honestly. I don't. Let me explain why. If you're judging on damage and aggression, yeah, Ankalaev took him to the ground, held him there for 9 out of 10 minutes. Whoop-de-doo. Blachowicz beat the snot out of him for 15 minutes straight, to the point where he was a couple of strikes away from completely finishing the fight, because Ankalaev would have been crippled at that point. If you're judging on damage, you have to give it to Jan Blachowicz. If you're judging on ground control time, you'd have to give it to Ankalaev. If you're judging on total strikes landed, you'd have to give it to Ankalaev because he outstruck him. Now, there's total strikes and then there's significant strikes. There's 2 different striking criteria in an MMA fight, okay? Blachowicz didn't land as many strikes, but landing half as many strikes as Ankalaev did, he did twice the damage. At the end, Jan Blachowicz, he was sweaty, tired. But Ankalaev couldn't stand. He had to be held up by his coaches for the post-fight interview. He walked out of the octagon on his own power, but he went through an absolute beating. So again, if you're looking at damage, you have to give it to Jan Blachowicz. If you're looking at just total strikes landed, control time, you have to give it to Ankalaev. So I can see both sides. So you have to look at it from that perspective. Honestly, I expected, going into the fight, as much as of a fan of Jan Blachowicz as I am, I expected Magomed Ankalaev to dominate that fight. And he essentially got dominated for more than half of it. Then he took it to the ground, doing what the Dagestanis do. They use their eternally superior wrestling to come out on top, which was wise. But he wasn't able to submit him from the top. He wasn't able to knock him out. As tired as Blachowicz was, his defense from the bottom was solid enough to still stuff everything Ankalaev was doing. Yeah, he took some hits by the end. He started taking some heavy ground and pound, but it wasn't enough to knock him out either, though. So, in my opinion, therefore, I think Jan Blachowicz won the fight. Having said that, feel free to express your comments and opinions in the comment section on this video. Don't at me. Don't say I'm an idiot. Again, these are just my opinions. Everyone's opinion is valid because none of them are right or wrong. They're just our opinions. They are not factual. They're just our own assessment. Especially in the fight world, everyone's going to have their own opinions on things. People out there who still love Conor McGregor. Don't at me again. So, like and subscribe to my channel. My channel is swiftly becoming a melting pot of all kinds of different content, whether I'm reviewing hot sauces or posting training competition footage of my own fight career, or just musical stuff from my DJ side of things. I'm going to be posting a lot more stuff like this, though, like recaps and opinions and things like that, kind of doing more podcast-related material. So anyway, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Get ready for UFC 283 with a historic fourth fight between Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, as well as the light heavyweight championship fight again between Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill. Also check out Aries Combat Sports Training Center in Macedonia, Ohio. We got lots of exciting stuff coming up, including fights this weekend in Akron, Ohio at Chaparral's Party Center. We got a flyweight making his fight debut this weekend. Really excited. He's going to absolutely smash his opponent. So really excited for that. Anyway, God bless. We'll catch you on the next one. Be disciplined. Be great. We'll see you next time.